Mr. Walton, did you make contact with aliens? Were you taken to another planet, to a mothership? How did they communicate with... Can you tell me what they look like? Can you tell me how many of them there were? Were you given food?
But the teachers are alive. They're not books. They are the very living essences of nature itself.
What a strange person.
Unbelievably powerful supercomputer that's running our reality, and we don't have a clue as to how to operate it.
So when maybe you or somebody else creates an AGI system and you get to ask her one question, what would that question be?
What's outside the simulation?
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body, because I am more than physical matter. I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world.
Do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. Do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm the void one.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
All broadcasting from New York, upstate near the Great Lakes. This is Lighting the Void, and I'm your host, Joe Roop, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, live, raw, and uncut. Call-in number for tonight is 1-800-588-0335, and it's April the 27th, and just turned the 28th here on the East Coast as it's midnight. Hope you enjoyed your full moon. I hope it was transformational for you. God can only hope, right? That's what we want. If you want to join the chat room, you can go to fringe.fm/chat room to join our Discord server. Make sure you go to fringe.fm, that's the network site, and click on the Discord banner there. If you want to go to our website, it's lightingthevoid.com. You can also contact the show via email at contact@lightingthevoid.com. And thank God to all of you supporters and patrons out there. And yeah, it's really cool that you guys keep this thing going. And I want to give a big, massive shout out to the crew, Pacho and Rohan. Rohan is killing it right now with the Deep Void project, man. I can't believe it. And we're getting some stuff done behind the scenes. This new thing we're going to start for you guys. I wish, I don't want to jinx it. I want to talk so much about it, but I don't want to jinx it. Just give big hats off to Rohan. That's what you need to do. If you see him, tell him he's awesome. That's what you should do. All right. So we're going to jump right into the show tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about natural law and sovereignty. And our guest, Tom Barnett's here with us. And some of the things that we could be discussing, are, you know, what does it truly mean to be a sovereign being? And are there universal laws in our world and reality? Which I totally believe in natural law. So that's an interesting subject we're going to talk about tonight. And without freedom in our mind, is it possible to live freely in an external world? Now, Tom Barnett's a holistic health practitioner and mindset coach covering diverse topics from law, culture, and sociology to human health and spirituality. And you can go to his website at Tom Barnett, and that's 2 T's on the end, tombarnett.tv. Tom, thanks for coming on the show, man. It's good to have you.
Hey, welcome. Good to be here. Thank you.
Well, I'm a big fan of natural law and freedom and sovereignty. And I was kind of looking at up today, and that there's these beings, so-called beings, that we have in our country called sovereign beings, and that the FBI considers those people that label themselves as sovereign beings, people that live in the United States, but are I guess they define it as separate from the United States. They just live here as domestic terrorists. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you consider yourself, like, if you label yourself in this country as a sovereign being, like the title, then the FBI labels you a domestic terrorist. Isn't that interesting? I've never thought the word sovereign would mean something so terrible.
No, but it kind of doesn't. Anyway, I think most of this is, my honest opinion is, I think that the sovereign movement was started by them in the first place, CIA, something like that, where they put this idea out to kind of lead people down a path a certain way, but then stop them at the end, so they never really get to that full element of freedom. The idea of being sovereign doesn't actually stack up, because by definition, you have to have your own state, you have to have like a bank, you have to have an army, you have to have a lot of things in place. So to say that you're a sovereign being, by definition, is actually something that can't be
pretty ridiculous.
Can't be attained.
Yeah.
Yeah. The original word is actually souverain, and that means an overlord or an overlord, because anything else is an underling, and then souverain is an overlord. Sovereign is something that refers to a state, so it's not really the right word to use in the context of being a living man or woman. And I know what you mean when people refer to themselves as that, but that's one of the, I think, at least in our country, that's one of the ways that you can get yourself into trouble, is by claiming that you're something like that, which you can't be, and therefore the state can deem you to be incompetent or need to get psych tested or something to that degree.
Right. Yeah. I thought that was interesting too, but I'm pretty sure the way you're talking about sovereignty is to own your own self. I'll let you explain it, but from watching your YouTube channel and on your website, what I can tell is you're all about personal power and not having to rely on so many things that already have us trapped to begin with, especially our health and medicine and things like that keep us enslaved to the system.
Yeah, I'd say that's an accurate way of putting it. There's, I do define it literally as just, the whole element of standing in your own power and being free is really open to interpretation, because, to be honest, there's not many people that ever attain full and true freedom in the physical realm as far as being governed by this system and the state. When people are classed as someone that's foreign to the state, the idea with being sovereign is that you live on the land. You don't live in a country. You can't live in the United States of America or Australia, because those are corporations, they're entities. You can't live in an entity, but you can live on the land. And that's on the land known as, I can't remember which one's which for you guys, but one is the United States and one's the United States of America. One's corporate, one's not. I can't remember which. But same as Australia, there's the land known as Terra Australis, Australia, and then there's the Commonwealth of Australia, which is the corporation, and that's what's always referred to as the state. So, the distinction is that you live on the land. That's essentially what it means in a common law sense, or a sovereign sense, if you will. And so I just don't know that many people. They do exist, but there's not that many people that ever really achieved true freedom from, being completely outside the clutches of that system. For me, in the reality of it, what most people will achieve is the idea of being sovereign within yourself. So outside of that, you have full control about what you do and don't consent to, as far as what can penetrate your own, sense of self and your own being. And that's where the empowerment is, where you're the one on the inside that nobody can touch. That part of you that is essentially immortal and eternal, that's what can be held sovereign at all times. But it's actually, funnily enough, not that way just by being alive. You do have to choose that by being aware of it. So that's really, like you said, that's the area that I concentrate more on. Of course, it does extend to the external world as well, and the system that we live in. And myself, I wouldn't class myself as a true free man because I still am bound by the state in certain ways. The difference is that I know how to conduct myself in commerce and hold my position to a degree that I can maintain a relative amount of power within that system.
Gotcha. So this whole idea of freedom is something that we need to really take a hard look at, where we get people say, well, at least I'm free. Well, freedom rings, and it's a big thing here in the States too, but you have to know that you're not totally free, and not in the sense that the true definition of the word. But the cool thing is what you're talking about, empowerment, being able to empower ourselves efficiently and I guess open up more doors of freedom that are there for us. Like, say, for instance, another topic that you talk about is natural law and universal laws. And it's something that I learned quite a bit from back in the day from Mark Passio, that when we start to get in tune with natural law, life does get a little bit more freeing, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it does. Definitely. But like I say, it's a degree. It's to the degree that you can take it. So for most people, I just think a lot of people find out about natural law and they get really excited because it starts to feel empowering. They always knew that something was a bit not right.
Right.
And that there was more to life than was being dealt to them. And then they find out about it, and it's very empowering because now you can start to see a way into that, full state of freedom and full empowerment. The degree to which most people will ever attain that's what I like to be realistic about. Everybody can increase the level to which they are free in the world, but it still is a personal journey where you have to do a lot of work to really attain full and true freedom by the definition of the words. But yeah, definitely it's empowering on any level. Even just learning the most basic elements of natural law can be extremely empowering, and that's what I'm all for.
Yeah, me too. It's just, it seems like there's a lot of balance in that as well. So these universal laws, so to speak, in our world, I don't think that we look at hard enough, right? I mean, we got a lot of people blaming, especially with this COVID stuff going on. There's a whole lot of pointing fingers and blaming, and there's a lot of mental health issues going. I can imagine physical health because of that stuff going on too. But I feel like these are one of these times right now that if we learned how to tap into natural law or the universal laws, it would really benefit us, especially right now, don't you think?
Yeah, now more than ever. It's funny. It's any time that the system as it is tries to impose more restrictions, it leaves them open to more for the public, for us, for the people to actually expand it rather than contract. It's like, I liken it to boxing. If you've got your guard up the whole time, it's hard for a punch to slip through. But the moment that you throw out a jab or a cross or a hook in order to go on the attack, you leave yourself open to a counterattack. Like, there's now holes that can be filled. And I think it's the same with what's happening. The more they try to impose restrictions on our movements, on our mind, on our health and anything else, the more they also leave themselves open for us to expand into those gaps, because we do become more aware. The more we're oppressed, the more we know that something's not right. So the more we start finding out about, natural law. And honestly, like, this has been a big topic over the last few decades I've seen, but no more than in the past year. I think in the past year, natural law has gotten so much more traction simply because of what the powers that be are trying to do to the people.
Now, when did you start your journey on this? Like, have you always been this kind of holistic health guy your whole life, or did you have something in your life change that got you going down this road?
I was always into the holistic health just because I was fascinated by the body and how we operate. But after I became quite sick myself, 15, 20 years ago, I really had to delve very deeply into it out of necessity. And that's what took me there. The natural law was a real extension of that. I don't see it as separate at all. And that was something I'd been aware of for a while. But, like I just said before, I didn't really have the need to delve into it too deeply. It was only as I got older and started to feel more and more of the constrictions and the lack of freedom within our world that I started to delve more into it. And then, of course, with COVID and things happening, then that's solidified. I've never really spoken about it before until now. And this is why, as I say, there's a real need for it now, and people are really hungry to find out more.
Yeah. Well, I definitely am, man, because I think it's one thing to learn about natural law, but I've listened to some of your videos, and I've heard a lot of people talk about health, man, and there's some really intelligent people when it comes to health and the biochemical makeup of your body and the body types, blood types, and all this other stuff. But I don't know. There's something about the way you teach it or the way you talk about it that kind of gives me hope, man. Because, like I've always had this issue in my life where I've either had to like really work out and diet excruciatingly hard in order to be in shape and feel good, and if I just didn't do that, I would slide off the other way and lose some metabolistic stuff there that like we all do here in the States. And when you really start looking at what's in the food, it's easy to see why. And it's it seems like a long, hard road to get back there, but I really do believe that there is something to the body when it comes to spirituality too. I haven't been really that, I guess, keen on it in the past when I was trying to do this out of body stuff, but now I realize that there's so much more that you could do spiritually and even energetically if you can just get into what your body naturally wants to be like,
I agree completely. And the funny thing is when you allow yourself to tap into the genetic potential that you have and the spiritual potential, then your recoveries or your turnarounds are actually really, really quick. You said that it might seem like a long road back once you fall off the wagon, but once you start allowing the body to do what it's designed to do and not work against it, it actually really works very efficiently and very quickly. And so that's where the spirituality ties in directly to the physical, because that is a choice on an energetic level. There's something beyond your physicality that is making that decision and choosing to live well. And then everything that comes as a result of that is just an extension. It's like the decision to live and to live fully then leads to better lifestyle choices and better dietary choices. And it doesn't become a chore, it becomes easy. And then those physical aspects, such as the sleep-wake cycles and getting enough rest and cleaning the mind and eating clean foods, then what that does is it very, very quickly allows everything to come back into a balance point and to start expressing the potential that it is always there. We only ever hide from it or don't represent it by the way that we treat ourselves, and that comes from an energetic perspective in the first place. They're not really separate things. So it's good, people like yourself are having a lot more realizations like that, but also are making the decision to, pay more attention to it. Same as natural law. It's just the world's changing quickly, and it is making more people realize that, these are things to pay attention to if you want to keep up with it, and if you want to not just keep up, but stay ahead of what's, been put our way.
Yeah, for sure. And have you had any like crazy spiritual experiences because of being in good health, like any out of body experiences or transcendental states that have happened to you?
Yeah, I don't consider them crazy though. I think they're quite natural when your body's, funnily enough, that actually come from trauma as well. So
really,
I've met a lot of people who've had these sorts of experiences, and it comes from taking a lot of drugs or alcoholism or violence. A lot of trauma, it can come from that, because it can cause that separation of the etheric bodies and the physical body. But for me, it happened, I guess it started when I was young. I'd experienced things that a doctor would maybe describe as sleep paralysis, but is really like more of an astral experience where your consciousness is basically just separating from the body itself. And then I had a lot of visions. I had a lot of premonitions growing up where before, the next day at school, I would see this thing happening over and over again, like getting hit in the head with a cricket ball and then falling on something or whatever. And then the next day it would happen to not me, but another kid at school, like exactly how I saw it happening the night before. And it happened several times with different events.
Wow.
And then that continued through 20s and things as well. And I had a lot of out of body experiences where I'd gone to, they call it remote viewing, where you're essentially looking down on everything from outside of yourself, and you can see a lot of, see the way things operate. But it's all very profound in its way, but unless you integrate it and find the meaning of it, it just becomes just an interesting experience, I think. So I do believe, though, that the more attention you put into keeping the mind and the body like purifying it, essentially. Not to the point of being a Puritan where you're just completely anal about everything and everything's right and wrong and all that sort of stuff, but just making a conscious effort to, go in a direction that befits your dreams. Then that's when, to me, in my experience and my experience with other people, that's when you have more of these, crazy, as people call it, experiences, which is literally just something showing you what's beyond the mundane of the physical, like the density of this realm. It's just seeing what's beyond that.
And we definitely have different bodies too. I heard you talking about that too, and I've studied some of that in the mystery schools as well. Stuff, for me, there's been different ones, like the conscious body, the unconscious body, and then some people say, well, it's the emotional body. Regardless of what body it is, I think it's cool to learn for each individual, like which one affects you and what ways too, even spiritually. Like for me, it's taken me a long time to realize that even as a man, I'm a little different than we're all different, but my emotional states affect my health big time. So it's something that I have to watch out for and take care of. You understand what I'm saying? Like we all have different kind of personality traits too.
Definitely. Yeah, we all have a different disposition. There's a lot of, if anybody's, they're new to this, there's a lot of, what do you call it? There's a lot of modalities, I think you could call it, that allows you to explore this more. You can start with, for me personally, I don't think that any modality is the answer to anything, but it does bring an awareness to it and you can explore it more deeply from there. So the most common one that people know about, maybe just from a physical perspective, is blood typing. So type A's, for example, are meant to be more suited to vegetarianism. They're more, they're softer people, that kind of thing. You got type O's, which are more of the warrior type or whatever. You've got various archetypes that are in all kinds of mythology from all cultures. You've got the signs of the zodiac in astrology and what that all relates to as far as your elemental makeup. You've got human design, which looks at whether you're a projector or a generator or a number of other things, combinations of them all. And then you've got gene keys. They're all different ways of expressing the same thing, which is looking at the unique makeup of each individual and the fact that, we do all have various different strengths and weaknesses. And for me, the important part about that, which was a big lesson for me as I was growing up, is learning that not everybody is like us, because I think we make the mistake often of assuming everybody sees the world through the same lens that we do and experiences it in the same way. And we can judge people very harshly. So what might be nothing to us, an experience to us is just water off a duck's back or is even funny, could be highly traumatic for somebody else. But we don't know that for them unless we understand them. And so otherwise we could judge them quite harshly as being weak or overly sensitive or something to that effect. And they should be more like us, That's a really common thing in the world. We see it today with people saying how selfish people are if they don't wear a mask or something like that. They're projecting something into the world because they don't understand things beyond themselves. So part of learning more about ourselves is also learning more about others in the world that we live in, so that we can maybe soften more into that and become, more integrated with life itself, which is something that is, I think it's a big first step for a lot of people.
Well, yeah, it definitely is for me. Even in my life, and I think everybody should do this, is like, first and foremost, learn, and I'm curious to what you think about this. In order to become aware of what how you affect others, you got to be aware of yourself too, and it's like, I'm just almost 40 years old now, man, and I'm starting to learn a lot about myself. Really big lessons that if I would have known 10 years ago, probably would have changed my entire life. And it all has to do with what you're talking about. Natural law, spirituality, learning to understand the different states about who I am and things like that. And then once you get to that point, then I think it's a lot easier to relate the difference in perspectives with people,
Yeah, definitely. And it's a big thing, you say you're nearly 40 and whatever, but that's young, it's it's really young because we've got so many lessons we need to learn. Rudolf Steiner, as I was learning about his works, he has his model of a 7-year cycle of events. The first 7 years of your life is, about developing, or essentially just growing into the fact that you're alive. Then you got 7 to 14, 14 to 21, 21 to 28. You got 28 to 35. And once you get to the 35 to 42, that's kind of the cycle, the 7-year cycle by which you're really coming into your own in this world. And you're really figuring out what you are and who you are and making your mark on the world. And so that period is, whether you buy into the exact 7-year cycle model that he was about is irrelevant, but you do notice that is a big developmental phase in most people when you look at their life. 35 to 42 is really, especially as a man, making your mark on the world. The human ego doesn't tend to develop fully until the age of 21, so you don't even know who you are until 21, yet the schooling system and college system says that by the time you've got to 21, you should have your education under your belt and have chosen a career and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
But I find that most people who are very cut off to the real essence of life and their own purpose are the ones who followed that system to the letter and never actually developed the ability to find that naturally. And I find those that are technically failures, or they're looked down upon in the eyes of society or their parents because they dropped out of college and they're like going nowhere, so to speak, through their 20s and 30s. But by doing that, I find that those people find a much deeper understanding of their own essence and the essence of life. So that by the time they hit their 30s and 40s, they become much more self-aware, much more connected to nature and their purpose in life, and therefore are a lot happier. And I believe a lot more, successful in the real sense of the word as they get into their late 30s and into their 40s. And that corresponds to that Steiner's 35 to 42 7-year cycle.
Yeah, man. What you just said right there, we got to take a break, makes so much sense, because I used to beat myself up for not going the college route, right? For not doing all that stuff that I was supposed to do. And yet I find myself in this place here where a lot of people are, they look to me to try to figure out what their purpose is now, and it's like, that's kind of interesting. And I'm sure they do that for you too, right? Like, I don't know what route you took, but I think when you live the hard life and just dive right into life without college and stuff, you do start finding out stuff about yourself like that.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah, we got to take a break here. We're here with Tom Barnett. Make sure you guys go to the website, tombarnett.tv, for reference. We'll be right back. More Lighting the Void coming up. Stay with us.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners, did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Are you stressed? I mean, who isn't? Anxiety creeping in? No, not that. Is sleep hard to attain because your brain just won't slow down? We're living in crazy times, and the fear knob has been turned up. Okay, there's an answer. Take a big breath, exhale, and go log on to AncientLifeOil.com. CBD, broad and full spectrum, organic and non-GMO CBD for you to enjoy. Change your tune from fear to calm, from brain overload to clear thinking. 0.003 THC on full spectrum and 0% THC on broad spectrum. Competitive pricing with the best quality. Also know everything is going to get better. No worries, be happy. CBD can help calm so your nerves don't think they're a 6-string electric guitar. Enjoy life, smile, and log on to AncientLifeOil.com for great CBD. That's AncientLifeOil.com. You'll be glad you did.
Want to know what's on the Fringe FM? Check out our schedule at thefringe.fm.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
This is Malorcas45, fan of The Fringe FM, challenging everyone to open their mind's eye Listen to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop to gain precision for your third eye vision.
My name is Jake. I'm from Billings, Montana, and I am a void walker.
Hey, Joe Root. Thanks for lighting the void. This is Janine in the bluegrass of Kentucky, and I am a void walker.
What's up, guys? This is Damien from San Marcos, Texas, and I'm a void walker. I listen to the show to keep myself aligned with the world.
Hi, this is Laura, aka Laura Lavender. I'm from Las Vegas, and I listen to Lighting the Void because it helps me understand some of the strangest experiences I've had. So thanks for all that you do and for always being there for us, Joe.
Hi, this is Kronox from Belgium, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Hey, this is country music singer and void walker Jason Benoit, and when I need my fix on the world of magic and the capabilities of the human consciousness, I listen to Joe Roop right here on Lighting the Void Radio.
Born out of the alchemical tradition of Paracelsus is a medical tradition called Spagyria. Though not many people practice this work today, Phoenix Aurelius has been researching and teaching this work for the last 15 years, and he needs your support.
Hi, I'm Phoenix Aurelius, and I'm the founder of the Phoenix Aurelius Research Society, where I perform modern scientific research on the methods and techniques of Paracelsian alchemy and Spagyria for health, wellness, agriculture, ecology, and more. All my work is 100% funded by the public. So if you like what I'm doing and you want to support my research, please consider making a purchase of spagyric medicines from my apothecary, fund your own spagyric IDF wellness research, or participate in my group study or one-on-one immersion courses so that you can learn how to perform this work for yourself. I want to thank you in advance for your support.
Visit thefringe.fm/alchemy research and enter coupon code FRINGE and receive 15% off anything and everything on the website. That's thefringe.fm/alchemy research. And thank you for doing your part and keeping alchemy alive in the modern day.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. Tom Barnett's our guest tonight. We'll open the phone lines up here in just a minute. It's 1-800-588-0335. Make sure you go sign up for the newsletter at thefringe.fm for The Outsider. And also contact the cabin, the Magic and Manifestation event where I'll be a guest speaker at in February. If tickets are still on sale, spots are limited. There's a link that you can go to on lightingthevoid.com if you click under events, or you can go to contact at the cabin/magic. All right, with our guest tonight, Tom Barnett, you can go to his website, tombarnett.tv, and we're talking about natural laws, sovereignty, spirituality, and being a creative being too. And a lot of I've talked to a lot of people about health and sports and stuff. I talked to Eben Britton about his NFL career, and I find this is interesting because when I started the show, Tom, I was talking about paranormal stuff, the out-of-body experience, and I still talk about that, the esoteric, the stuff that I love. But the more that I get into nature, the more I'm finding out, like, it's all interconnected, man, all of it. It's 100% all interconnected. And, yeah, I'm just really stoked about this stuff, man. Did you ever have any, like, paranormal experiences or anything like that? I'm just curious about this stuff because a lot of people that we talk to that in the paranormal world, they talk about things like demons and dogmen, things like that. So a guy in your state that's in good health that understands this stuff, I'm kind of wondering if you have had any bad experiences like that, or have they all been pretty cool and pretty good?
Honestly, they've all been good. I've never had a negative experience like that. I've had an experience when I was a kid. I had experiences where I was a bit worried, where I felt a presence and, I felt paralyzed and things like that. But I also think that, honestly, like what we were talking about before, I think it comes down to different dispositions and different constitutions. I'm not sure that I'm somebody who has the same paranormal, what would you call it, sensitivity as
Right.
other people. The people who are naturally the psychics, that kind of thing, they're usually the ones that see the entities and experience having entities attached to them and things like that. Whereas people like me, I'm naturally a lot more robust. I would just to clarify that, just as a point of reference, I say robust and sensitive are on opposite ends of the scale. People that are very sensitive and experience a lot of the paranormal tend to be a bit more susceptible to that and feel drained from it and everything else. People who are more robust tend to make their own way in life, either don't allow entities in or just don't have a resonance that entities can attach to in the first place. Whatever it is, I'm not actually sure. But my experiences have always been very profound and very uplifting, very godly.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Nothing like demons and bad entities and all that sort of stuff. I haven't had those myself.
Yeah, I got you. I understand totally. The reason why I ask is because I got some theories on this, right? Because I've been on both ends of the spectrum, and I feel like, and I'm not pointing fingers or accusing or anything like that, but I feel like when you are actually protecting yourself or taking care of yourself, and following your dreams, trying to become more sovereign, tapping into natural law, I mean, quickly. It doesn't, even in my life, it changes from this dark, weird feeling to something better, and your dreams are better and things are better. So I think a lot of this stuff, and I could be wrong here because I'm no doctor, but I think a lot of this stuff has to do with our outlook, our emotional states and our beliefs and things like that as well,
I think that's a very sound theory, and I deal with a lot of different people. And especially in the area that I live in, there are a lot of the very sensitive types of people that have. But the thing is, every time they talk about psychic, experience or what they think is going to happen, it never happens. They're very. It's kind of how you're describing it is making a lot of sense to me, because they don't really. They think that they can just. No offense to like people that have dietary whatever they want to do. But, they're not eating a lot of balanced foods. They're either going too vegan, not eating enough calories, they're making a lot of decisions that don't befit a strong, healthy, vibrant system. Right. And therefore, they're the ones that have, exactly like you said, they're the ones that have these susceptibility to what they perceive as, whether it's real or not, perceive as entities and negative things and negative high frequency beings and all these terms people use. And really, to me, it's just that they're not, they have no desire, it seems, to improve their physicality. They don't seem to want to exercise and strengthen the body. They don't seem to want to have strengthening foods. They don't want to, learn natural law. They don't want to take more responsibility for themselves. And so perhaps it's real what they're experiencing, but I do actually I'm very much on board with what you said, where I think it's as a result of the decisions that they're making. It's the mindset. It's what they're projecting out as a result of unconscious lack of empowerment. And having said that, I do still think it's got a lot to do with the constitutional makeup as well, where some people just are a bit more naturally like that. But I do think that we have, as I said, it's all potentiality, and I do believe that we can improve or withdraw from that potentiality depending on our lifestyle choices. And what we believe, it's really the stories that we run through ourselves all of the time, which are our filters, and those determine the narrative that we live.
Yeah, and the whole reason why I'm saying this to you too is because, when it comes to what you were talking about earlier, not taking the mainstream route and just kind of went my own way in life and stuff, that's good, but it caused a lot of emotional states, because I went through a lot of hard stuff, man, even physically. And so in that world, not paying attention or not learning about myself or not being self-empowered, I let my emotional body or even my psyche take over. And then that in turn, which is, if you go back to the Hermetic law, it was a cause and effect to what happens to my body, right? So I'm trying to work my way back to being a healthier person from where I was. That's what I'm saying, because I can see both ends of this now, right? And I think a lot of just how we feel in general about ourselves and what we know about ourselves has everything to do with the things that happen to us, whether it's in life or whether it's in the spiritual realms, paranormal realms.
Yeah, I agree completely. There's, you spoke earlier about the different ways to describe various bodies, like the emotional body. In my book, The Common Sense Guide to Food, I put a little diagram of the 4 bodies that I think we're primarily made of, which is the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. There's a lot of other subtle bodies. You got astral bodies, etheric bodies. There's others as well, but they're the 4 primary ones that kind of seem to influence our representation or our expression into the world. And in the physical realm, if we have, if there's a tree, for example, it's got something dodgy in the fruit, it's not necessarily a problem with the fruit. It's a problem in the soil. It's a problem down at the roots. So when we trace symptoms or conditions back up through the chain of bodies, through the physical to the emotional, the mental, and then the spiritual, we find out that a lot of the ailments are actually held deeper in those bodies, in the more energetic or etheric bodies, and the expression is just seen or manifested in the physical. And so as you're becoming more aware of some of the physical ailments that you might be experiencing or have experienced, and the traumas experienced and what have you, by exploring those, you're exploring deeper through that chain of bodies, and you're getting to that spiritual body where when you're healing one, you're basically healing the other. And once they're balanced, you're not attracting things like injuries, illnesses, negative events in the life or anything like that. And that's when you know that the physical and the metaphysical are very nicely balanced, and that's you're on the right track, I guess, because the body doesn't lie. Like the amount of people that I see that are supposedly very spiritual, but they also have tumors and cysts and cancers and everything else. It's like the body doesn't lie. There's something there that's showing the imbalance. And some people, like you just said before, it's like it can work both ways, because some people have their awakenings because of the trauma.
That's pretty much what's happened to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But through that, then you can explore what and why and how, and then start to heal that on whichever end it is, wherever it is in that chain of bodies, and just come to a more balanced point. And then that's where, and everybody knows it for themselves. It's not for somebody, usually not for somebody outside of them to judge where they're at. It's very much a personal journey.
Yeah, this is the thing too. Like a lot of people that are overweight, and I can relate to this with some people. If they're not taking care of their emotional self, or they're unaware of it, or they're just the effect of everything emotionally, they turn to things like comfort. And what the scientists go into the genetics and all the stuff of the body, but I don't think what they don't see in the metaphysical realm is an emotional, sensitive person will do things and start creating a shell around themselves of comfort, and it doesn't seem that way, but that's what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
But if you were just aware of who you are emotionally, you could kind of deflect negativity or deflect certain types of energetic vampirism in your life and things like that. Or even if you do it to yourself, and you wouldn't ever have to let it affect your body. You could just go in the flow and keep that energetic circle going in a good way,
Totally. Yeah, I agree. 100%. It's that ability as well to not be embroiled in your own stories and patterns, to be able to observe. So when you feel an emotion, even, or when you think a thought, or you recognize a recurring story that's running through you, is the ability to just separate from it and observe it. And when you can do that, it loses its power and its weight, and you become a lot more free. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at, is that ability to just watch things and let them be, as opposed to being right in them and then experiencing that and the stress that it can cause, and then therefore the other negative effects that can cause on the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies as well.
So do you think that if someone is, let's just say they're trying to get into the spiritual stuff, they're trying to have transcendental experiences and things like that, but they're either emotionally sensitive, or I would even say deep in their psyche, they're a little sensitive, or maybe prone to even moments of psychosis and things like that. Just getting the body fixed in a healthy way can change all of that, I think. Can it?
It does. Well, yeah. There's so much evidence that a lot of these conditions that afflict the psyche is because of the condition of the body. And when the body is cleaner, so is the mind. I mean, that's an old expression, healthy mind, healthy body. The Greeks used to live by that. And so, I mean, I've seen it with depression. I've seen it with psychotic episodes. I've seen it with bipolar disorders. I've seen it with, well, too many to list, really. But a lot of these psychological, manifestations are really just rooted in the physical, and particularly in the gut. That's well known. That's well documented these days, that deficiencies in the gut, a weakness in the gut, leads to a lot of the psychological issues. Not only that, but just the posture alone. I mean, people fixing up just their physical structure and working on their posture and their stability and their balance, that goes a long way to making them feel a lot better and more comfortable in their own body, so they don't feel so foreign to the world, because the physical body is our vehicle and by which we experience the physical world. And then if that's not in good condition, then we're surely not going to be having the best experience possible, which can only have an effect on the psyche and the emotional bodies. So simply by improving the condition of the vehicle by which we experience the physical world, it just makes sense that any of those other, ailments, you might call them, can only alleviate as a result.
What is your viewpoint on this, since we've been talking about this a lot this past week? I've been kind of diving into this as the nature of our desires too. Like, we're learning about these things. And I was watching a video that you did where you were talking about like things like, I guess you were talking about hormones, libido, and even a few like herpes and stuff like that. And you were talking about Catholics. And I was like, for a minute there, I was like, what's he talking about? But I started listening and I was thinking, oh, well, because we've been studying sacred sexuality here on the show for a long time. And I was thinking, yeah, I think we've had like a really unhealthy viewpoint of this whole thing as a whole, especially in the universe, because it's the two creative forces. You see it all in nature. If you look at natural law too, like it just works in a healthy way. But we as humans, we've created all these distortions and dimensions and weird things around them. And I think that causes a lot of bad stuff spiritually for us as well. I'm curious as to your thoughts on it though, or even in a healthy sense.
Okay, well, I think I get where you're going. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but you're essentially asking if there's a correlation to the indoctrination causing repression or other,
exactly.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, religion, that's their whole agenda, is to control. People think that religion is about getting them closer to God, but it's actually, in my experience, designed to separate from and therefore control the masses. Not that religion is all bad by any means, but that seems to be the approximation of it. So what I said about Catholics was that as a demographic or as a statistic, they have the highest incidence of cancers of the sexual organs. So that's testicular, prostate, ovarian, cervical, uterine cancers. And then when you look at that and you look at, well, why? What are Catholics known for? And it's that repression of sexuality. So you think these thoughts and they're evil, or you want to touch that part of you, that's bad and you'll go to hell, or whatever else. It's not just,
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you in that corner either. Trust me, I said that all wrong.
No.
But you were just using it as a statistic
and it's not just
example.
Catholics. It's a lot of religions, but Catholicism is known to be a religion that does downplay our natures like that. But then when you look at nature and natural law, as you were saying, it's just simply a creative energy. It's the most creative energy that we know of in existence. So by using it in the right way, it's extremely powerful. And I do believe that a lot of these, the powers that be that essentially sanction educational systems and sanction religions and everything like that, it's designed to prevent us coming into our full power and understanding how powerful we truly are. Because we're capable of so much more than we're taught. And unless we're taught, sometimes, it's only by chance or luck, although I don't really believe in luck, but as a point of reference, that we might stumble upon some of the power that we actually have. And sometimes that's through negative events or trauma. But until we experience something that can wake us up to that, or until we're taught by elders, which don't exist in our society anymore, then it's very difficult to come across the fact that we are actually very, very powerful beings and what we're capable of. And so I guess your question is more centered around the suppression of our natures, and that comes through the indoctrination, coming through the educational system, the media, and the religious systems primarily.
Has it been proven that repression, and I've tried to read some articles about this too, but it's a theory, but that repression has a negative effect on our bodies as well. I mean, based on what you're seeing, it's kind of like, well, that's an obvious thing, but they haven't really scientifically proved that, have they?
Yeah, no, they have plenty of times.
Have they? Okay.
I can't think of any studies offhand for you, but it's definitely been shown. And I mean, just that correlation of repressing sexuality and therefore having more incidents of cancer of the sex organs, that's a documented statistic. It doesn't really say prove that repression does it, but there are a lot of studies that do that. Funny thing about studies is that a lot of the time you won't find out which ones have been done that are really great, because unless it's designed to, I guess, propagate anything that's in the system, it'll be censored. Unless you actually go specifically looking for them without a marketing budget, the people that do the studies tend not to be able to get those studies out. The ones that see the light of day are the ones that can be used to sell a product or to put a certain thought process into the population. Those get media attention, they're written about, people talk about them. But of all the studies that are done, only a small amount ever see the light of day. And I've seen them just in my studies throughout my life where repression is shown to have a definite physical effect in the body. And we all know that that's true without seeing a study too, because if you repress excitement, for example, that it has negative consequences. If you you feel down on things and you feel small, your body just curls up. Like, you don't have a good strong posture if you feel weak, unempowered, you feel small, you feel anything like that. Your feelings have a very visceral effect because you see it in the body. You don't just see it, you feel it. And your body shows it in its physicality. Likewise, if you're feeling amazing and you feel empowered and confident and happy and joyful, you can see it in the body. The body naturally stands taller and looks more effective. We already know this. We don't necessarily need to see studies that show exactly what it does, even though I've seen several that do exist. So the point being is to really just take a broader look at ourselves and the world around us and come to our own conclusions, because if we are under the impression that all of the knowledge exists in books or on the internet or in studies, then I think we'll miss out a lot on being able to just extract all of the information we need essentially from nature, because it's teaching us all of the time. And natural law, I really believe, has a strong affinity with our connection to nature itself, because that's when we don't just learn it, but we feel it and we embody natural law because we're connected so deeply to nature.
Yeah, I even have that in my intro. Manly P. Hall saying that, like, it's not from books or teachers, it's from nature itself, right? The experience and observation of how nature works and how it works within us too. I think that's a really a great observation there. The reason why I bring that up though is because it's something that I've studied and had a little experience with too, and that even the ancient Egyptians understood how to transmute energy with this force, especially when it came to things like love and stuff like that. But I could see if you look at things like Aleister Crowley, religion, you could see how the pendulum swings from religion to total rebellion and how it can get unhealthy on both ends for the body. And I think natural law shows us in every single way, at least from my observation, that the best things of life and the best forms of energy come in balance. It's all about balance.
Yeah, I totally agree. Balance in all things. And I talk about that a lot when it comes to physical health as well, mental health, anything, is that I usually make it as a diagram, as a circle. And then anything that's on the outside of the circle, away from the center, is at the extreme. And that's when you're like all out training 6 days a week, doing CrossFit twice a day, or you're eating all meat, or you're all vegan, or you're like all on the left or all on the right with your thoughts or your actions or anything like that. And then the more you embrace a balance of things, the closer you get to the center of that circle. And that center of the circle is where there's no polarity. It's not living too positive or too negative. And it's a balance of all things. And it's that place where you would, like mystics or ancients would describe that as bliss or utopia or nirvana or heaven or something like that. the world of non-duality. So look, balance in all things is absolutely key. And a lot of people think they're being healthy when they go on a really extreme diet, like I'm only eating all of this and it's the best food, it's the highest in this nutrient or whatever. But the more extreme, in my experience, the further away from balance, realistically, the lesser of the quality of life, the more problems or the more consequences will come as a result of the extremism, the further it moves away from balance.
I want to talk a little bit more about that too, because that's a really big subject here. But we're going to open up the phone lines too when we come back. It's 1-800-588-0335. We'll be right back with Tom Barnett. You guys stay with us. More Lighting the Void coming up.
Hey, this is No Way Jose, a Northern California Piscean stuck in the Arizona desert. I'm a void walker, and I got the shoes to prove it. So what do I do when my soul yearns to delve deep into the realm of the unknown? I aim my satellite straight into the night sky and catch a smooth ride on the KTLK-DB radio waves. I tune into Lighting the Void with Joe Root on the Fringe FM.
Joe, Lighting the Void is the best show on the planet. This is Barney, your friend from Facebook. Thank you and all the crew for all you do. Namaste, my friend.
This is Macon from the foothills of North Carolina, and I am a void walker.
G'day, void walkers. This is Lily from down under Australia. The world may be small, the enigma is greater. So let your curiosity take you for a journey with Joe Root.
Hey, this is Fee, coming in from Central Maryland, and I am a void walker.
This is Kevin Doherty, a beginner void walker. I'm from Vancouver, BC. I know a little about a lot, and as Leonard Skinner said, I guess the rest. I learned a lot from Mr. Root in the show, and heard it from the beginning. I knew right then he was going to be a new Art Bell. Thanks for all your shows, and keep it up.
Hey, this is Derek from Mass, aka the Night Stalker, and I'm a void walker.
This is Mark from Chicago, and I walk the void to ascertain what is consciousness.
My name is Jared Johnson, and I'm from Humboldt County, California. I do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm a void walker. Thanks, Joe Root.
This is Barbara Charlton from Metaphorical Archaeology. If you've ever had a traumatic paranormal experience, the effects of it may stay with you for years. Who do you talk to? You can't go to conventional help. What we do is we use emotional freedom techniques or tapping to actually neutralize the effects of that event. Maybe when you tell the story now, your heart races and your palms get sweaty. You don't even want to think about it because you don't know how to neutralize that. That's what EFT tapping does. It neutralizes those emotions. The circuit that was recorded on is gone. The energy flows freely and you're free of it. And that's what emotional freedom is all about. We offer this as a pro bono service, but this is something that I offer because no one, it seems, is helping people with these experiences. If you'd like to reach me, it's really easy. My cell phone is 214-995-3754. Please leave a message. I will get back to you as quickly as possible. Or you can email me, barb.eft@gmail.com. And EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. Reach out to me. It's confidential. This works. You won't believe the results.
Have you heard of heavy metals? Yeah! I'm not talking about the heavy metals in the junkyard. I'm talking about the heavy metals that build up in your body. Heavy metals in your body can make you feel sluggish, fatigued, and just plain off. Why not try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com? Cleansing your body and making you feel great. cleansing the inside of your body of intruders that sneak their way into you and set up an intruder camp. Life Change Tea helps remove unwanted intruder camps. Brew it, steep it, and drink in the results. Tastes great, so you can create a new health habit. Our tea loves to help people. It just needs the chance. So order yours today by logging on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Our Life Change Super Strength Tea is waiting. This could be a beautiful relationship. Take charge of your health. Order at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
From the Kingdom of Arkansas, you are listening to Joe Roop and Lighting the Void here on the Fringe FM.
All right, Tom Barnett, our guest tonight. Remember, the show is live here 5 nights a week, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, following Troubled Minds Radio with Michael Strange. And then after this, as always, The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable. And interesting thing, we were talking about natural law with Tom here. And thanks again for coming on the broadcast, Tom. It's cool to have you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's good to be here.
Now, I want to talk, here in a minute, I want to talk about how you made the news, if you remember that. But do you remember that? But I still want to talk about this balance thing, though. So,
yeah, sure.
So it's something that I've come to learn through study and also experience, I think, more than anything. Is like, even it doesn't even matter if you experience something positive or negative. Speaking of balance, you can, if you learn from it, it can see it. That I think balance, and I know it sounds cliche and it's almost boring to some people, but balance is like the opposite of chaos. You know, it's harmony. It brings things into balance. And I think this is where we get the most power from for ourselves energetically, as well as the most love in our lives. Even if, you know, a lot of times you'll see two people that are out of balance, they come to find each other and bring each other to balance. And that causes love, or it could be vice versa, disruption. But just, I think being able to observe that is like one of the most powerful things I've learned so far.
Yeah, sure. I've, as somebody that I depleted most of my energy in my early 20s, and that's why I got really ill. There's a big difference between forcing something, which usually comes from what we think is right and wrong, which comes from the ego. So we force our way through life, like things should be this way. I need to do this, that kind of thing. We force, and it depletes energy. Whereas power is something that is inherent, that comes through all of things and just moves things along. And so if we can tap more into power rather than trying to force things, I do think that we come to a much, more balanced, again, using that balance. Using the idea of balance is to find a much easier path through life and much more enjoyable. And that comes from, having, I think, being tapped into a higher source, being tapped into nature, having a faith in something greater than ourselves as well. And then that's generally where that power comes from, which you could also classify as your higher self. So force would come from the ego, which is the lower self or the slave self. And power would come from the higher self, which is, that spiritual realm. I would also describe that as.
Yeah, exactly, man. I wish I could go into all the ways that I see it. I see it in even, when watching The Matrix, when he's talking about how humans were batteries. And if you look at our chemical makeup and you look at the why cells get overgrown and how we end up getting disease and stuff because we just get out of balance, or relationships get out of balance, or in business when things get out of balance, it goes bad. It's kind of obvious, right? And anytime there's chaos in nature, if you notice things that are chaotic, storms, whatever, like these things are considered bad, but they're really trying to bring things back into harmony and balance. It's happening for a reason most of the time, which is why I kind of want to get to this discussion a little bit about COVID, because I know they tried to make, you were one of the first people that spoke out against it, and they tried to make a little bit of an example out of you by saying you were a conspiracy theorist or something. I forget what they said about you, but I thought it was incredibly brave, to do that. There's these articles that were back in News Corp, which was 2019. I think you're one of the first people to come out and talk about this because you could kind of see what was going on. I don't want to speak for you, but it's kind of funny that 2-3 years down the road, there's more people that see what you were talking about back then,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's look, I don't think that was brave either, because I never had an audience. I just made a video so my friends could stop being silly about what was going on. It ended up getting shared right around everywhere. And then, of course, something's got merit to it when the mainstream has to try so hard to shut it down, discredit it, and whatever else. That's like a real telltale, I find, that anything that is being suppressed, anything I find that's suppressed these days, I go, that's something I should know about. So if they start slandering somebody, I kind of go, oh, well, maybe there's something that they've got that I should know, because if the mainstream's trying to slander it or delete it, I should probably know what's in that. And but yeah, look, it's you're right. There's a lot more people talking about things now, but I don't think it was anything more than the fact that there's the oppression. I think the reason that video struck a chord was that most people knew something was wrong, but they just hadn't got the background of experience to be able to explain what was wrong. That, it didn't seem right. It didn't stack up, and that it doesn't seem right that you could be completely healthy, but then be deemed a health risk or anything like that. So I just think that they pushed people to the point where people were now receptive to a video like that, because they just inherently knew that that was the answer without knowing the background, without having studied about microorganisms and viruses and anything else.
Yeah, and to your point that you talked about back then too, most of us, that we had an intuitive feeling this was going to be all about the vaccine. And, when I looked this stuff up, I remember looking up and seeing that there were 7 pharmaceutical companies all experimenting. I mean, immediately and a little bit before Corona was even announced for this new vaccine, and they all have different versions of it and just competing for it. And we're talking about billions of dollars. So to say, I mean, I'm not saying it is a conspiracy, but it's kind of dumb to not look at it and just follow the money, and you can see what's going on. If you actually do some research, and this is what I tell everybody, you don't have to take my word for it, Tom's or anybody's. I mean, all you have to do is do some real research. Turn off, MSNBC, turn off Fox News, read, do research, study how vaccines actually work, study what RNA is, go back and follow the money all the way to these corporations that are involved with this stuff. It's not hard to figure it out,
No, it's not. It makes perfect logical sense, but it's how open is the mind? Because if somebody is in the state of being a child and their sense of comfortability and safety and security in the world comes from the idea that laws protect us and the government serves us, and that, pharmaceutical companies have our health and our best interests at heart. It's not a matter of understanding it logically, because the logic is easy. It's in the emotion. It's in that childlike state of needing a teat to suckle on or a parental figure to keep them safe, from monsters and dragons and all that kind of thing. So you can't threaten that if somebody's not ready to move beyond it. And if they're not, that's why they won't follow any money trails. They just physically will not be able to see it. It's just an impossible thing. They have to be broken open somehow, or woken up is another way to put that, somehow. And most of the time it's got to come from a self-realization of some kind. And that's why most people that have woken up have gone through a trauma. You've repeatedly said during this conversation about physical, mental, emotional, things have been hard and difficult. And that's where we're moving into that level of trauma that awakens the spirit or awakens the psyche to something that most people who don't have, major issues or anything, sort of, they don't really come to that realization without an impetus or a catalyst to make that happen. Not everybody, but that's what I see in most people.
Yeah, I think you got to, and another thing too is like, when it comes back to the balance thing that I realized is it's good to help people. It's good to heal people or try to help someone fix their own trauma or allow someone to help fix yours. That's love. But to the extent to where it causes energy to slide too far off one way or the other. In other words, are you allowing it to take over yourself? Are you allowing, are you forgetting about yourself while you're helping somebody else? Or are they forgetting about themselves while they're helping you? If we can start paying attention to that more, I think we could do a lot more healing, because there's this other place where it comes from, this rugged individualism, which I think is a great idea, but I don't want to mistake rugged individualism for a sovereign being, because there's this state of mind of rugged individualism to the point where I'm in this circle, don't bother me, I'm doing my own thing, versus people coming together and helping each other to empower each other in a balanced way.
Yeah, that's right. Totally agree.
It gets it gets kind of funny when you look at it, how all it really is just a game of balance. That's what life is, until you're out of here. But I think it's funny too that we can just go in nature and look at all this stuff and see what's going on. But I'm still curious about some of the things that I don't know about that you may have experienced when it comes to spiritually, when it comes to being balanced. Because honestly, man, I've probably been in shape, real good shape, a couple of times in my life from playing sports and doing other things. But even then, I think back about my diet and stuff. I think that I wasn't in total balance even then. So I really am curious, and I want to do this, while I have time to still. It's just getting this ultimate optimum energetic state. I always wonder what it feels like. I bet it feels amazing. I wish I could feel what you're feeling right now is what I'm saying.
Well, look, to be honest, I'm not in that state at the moment either, because I am specifically detoxifying a lot of mercury that has been in my system since I was a young child. So that takes a big toll. But I know what that state's like. That was my normal state. And it's not just that, it's the feeling that it is freeing. So when we're talking earlier about sovereignty and freedom, that's what health sovereignty is you literally feel free in your body, free to express. There's not one thing that your body that you can't express or feel limited to express, is a better way of saying it. That's what vibrant health feels like. Just the ability to express with nothing holding you back. And so the further we are away from that, the less we feel, I guess, in tune spiritually, as well, as you're hinting at, because that expression that comes from the soul or the spirit is then hampered in ways where we've got too much pain or too much restriction or a lack of energy or a lack of motivation, which generally, comes from that lack of physical robustness and health. So I hear what you're saying. And I guess the answer is when you can separate from the body, then you feel free of the body anyway. So there are a number of ways to achieve that, to be able to astral travel, for example, or to, have, just without getting too complex, just that kind of.
That we love talking about that on this show too. But honestly, I haven't got out of body in a long time, but I remember when I did, I was doing energetic exercises every day. Like every day, I was doing meditations, making sure I got a certain amount of sleep. There was a lot of tricks that you could do where, the wake back to sleep, where you wake yourself up. And I was more in tune with my energetic body then than I am now, but I'm trying to get back there too. And that wasn't even with like diet and exercise. That was with just some of the balancing and meditative practices that I learned. So I can imagine how awesome it could get if you in tune all of that. You get out of body every night if you were really in tune with it, I think, energetically.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's because I've seen people who are maybe more elderly and they've spent a lifetime in meditation and energetics, and they sit around with broken, fractured bones and that, but they're not physically able, but they're very spiritually free, but I still maintain that when you achieve balance in all of the bodies and the physical body is also robust, then I believe that leads to an even greater experience of all things, including the out of body experiences. I just don't think they ever take a full degree of separation. Yes, you can have the awareness of the separation, as in you're not aware of the physical body. You are just experiencing out of body realms, different astral planes and what have you. But there is no actual separation from the body because you are still energetically entwined with that physical body. So it's just that you're not aware of it. It's like when you're dreaming, you're not aware of the bed and your pajamas or whatever you sleep in. You're aware of what's in the dream, but you are still connected and aware of, on some level, the rest of the waking world as well. But you're just not, the awareness that you carry in the consciousness is not there. But it doesn't mean that it's not there. You know what I mean? It's like, just because you can't see what's in the room that you're not in, it doesn't mean it's not in the room. Like there could be other people in that room. And,
right.
You know what I mean? It's just a very,
Well, I mean, even the Monroe Institute did this stuff, man. They started out with this guy, and then next thing you know, they got this big institute, and he had people like meeting up out of their body at certain places. But he talked about in all of his books that it had to do with sleep, and sleep is really important. Like if we don't get enough sleep, nothing works right, But if we can get into like some really good sleep cycles that where we kind of stay the same all the time, you just naturally start to feel better energetically, and also if you're wanting to do any spiritual work too. So I think that's important. I think we at least in our younger years, I'm starting not to do that now, but in my younger years, I would just throw sleep off like it was nothing. Like, oh, who needs sleep, But it's literally taking lives or years off our lives, I think, if we're not careful.
It does. It is super important. Yeah. And that you're just, I guess, reinforcing what I said, where the spiritual experience will be heightened when the physical body is working as well as possible and is as robust as possible, and not taking it for granted or whatever. I said in, can't remember where I said it. I think it was in a blog post somewhere, but if we all agree that we are a soul that has a body, so rather than we have a body and it's got a soul in it, it's more that we're a soul or a spirit that has a body through which to experience the physical world, then I would think that one of the very first fundamental tenets of spirituality would be looking after that body.
Right.
Like learning how to look after it. And I see so many people in the spiritual realm who are so into all of their spirituality stuff that they neglect the physical body. They don't exercise it. They don't sleep properly. They don't feed it the right foods. They literally neglect the physical body. But in my estimation, I would say that that's the first tenet of spirituality, is to learn to look after the body that you inhabit. And a lot of ancient texts talk about the body as the temple. Paul Chek, who's one of the guys I've learned the most from, he's a guy that is in robust health across all the bodies. And he's somebody that I think people can take a nice inspiration from, to see that he is so spiritually advanced, and he's a shaman and he's everything else. And he's can still outperform most 25-year-old athletes as a almost 60-year-old. And I think that that's the yardstick. I think it's too much of an excuse for people to just throw away the physicality to go after the spirituality, because for me, and I'm just talking from my perspective, for me, that's an egoic action, to forego or to play down the beauty of the physicality in order to pursue something higher, because only the ego will judge spirituality as being higher than the physicality. So therefore, I just see it as an ego investment as opposed to a true spirituality, which would embody all things, including the physical body, and which includes looking after it well.
Well, I always talk about the magician and the tarot card too, because I lost my way with this. I became intellectually stimulated with spiritual things so much that I created a radio show and a station and everything out of it, and just followed this intellectual path, which on, the magician's table, I don't know if you've ever looked at a tarot deck, but the magician's table, the intellect is air, right? It's just one element. You still have the physical body. You still have your desire and fire body, which is the pentacle. You still have your emotional body and the astral realm, which is the cup. Like, you have to look over all of this stuff. And I knew this stuff, right? But I was so intellectually, and still am to this day, intellectually stimulated by it, that I was getting mediocre results. And still to this day, I'm learning how to get better than mediocre results. But we're all growing, right? But I'm just telling you what we're talking about right now is a big realization to where I've come at this very point in my life. So it's kind of synchronistic that you're on right now talking about it, you know?
Yeah, great. And that's how it happens too, you know, but I also don't find that being intellectually stimulated by something is usually a good thing, because it allows more of an inquisition into it. Like, it's something you're driven towards. So I get where you're coming from, and yeah, it can have its hold back effect, but in and of itself, I think intellectual stimulation is actually okay. It can lead into the right direction. It's not always just a negative thing.
Yeah, but to me, it was like everything, you know. That's what and I neglected my body. I neglected parts of my life. I focused on just knowledge and information and practicing and trying to do all this stuff. And now I can see how it affects me emotionally. It affects all kinds of stuff in my life, you know. And it goes back to that balance. When we get out of balance, everything starts getting wacky. And what we tend to do is, because we get hurt or victimized, or we feel like a victim from it, we start pointing our fingers. And sometimes I think we got to step back and go, like, look at I don't know how familiar you are with hermetics, but look at the hermetic law of this and say, well, where did I come into this picture? Like, what part of me caused myself to get here, and just fix it and be cool with it, you know?
I totally agree. One of the things that I've written about previously is that one of the greatest causes of ill health can be an interest in health. Because of that, it's buying too much into the intellect and needing to learn and find out everything about health possible. And it leads people to make some really strange choices with regards to food and lifestyle and make themselves unhealthy. It's too much in the over-analytical side of things, which is actually depletive to certain organs. Mostly the spleen actually is depleted by being over-analytical and in too much in the mind like that. And the same thing with when people like wake up, so to speak, and then they start researching all day and night, going down rabbit holes about all of the conspiracies in the world and all of the things that are wrong and bad and evil. And they can do themselves a number because they're too intellectual. They're trying to feed that appetite for that intellectual side of it, instead of just going outside and just connecting to nature and figuring most of that out anyway, but also not depleting yourself, because it is depletive to be too much, as you experienced, in the intellectual like that.
Yeah, and for me, as big as I am, I mean, I can outwalk some people that are thinner than me, but that's only for now. But that's only because I got all this stored up energy. That's something I realized. I went walking today and realized, man, I didn't walk like 5 miles, right? And I'm still going. Like, this is for me just constantly sitting in a radio chair, man. Like, that there needs to be a balance there, you know, for sure. Yeah. There's a question in the chat room that I think it's from Annie, and she's asking what your thoughts are on diets like keto, low carb, or carnivore short-term diets, things like that.
Short term, they're all okay, because sometimes like carnivore diets, short term for a week or few weeks at the most, can stop things like seizures and reverse a lot of symptoms. But long term, they don't. Long term, anything extreme doesn't have the right result. I think if you're looking at diets, the one that is the most representative of being a healthy diet is more along that paleo way of things. But again, it still misses out on some aspects of nutrition. It is in some ways a little dogmatic as well. The best diet is no diet. It's literally just listening to the body. Is the food natural, organic, and provided by nature? If so, it's fine. You know, then judging it, I can't eat too much fruit, fruit's bad. Or if I eat too much meat, meat's bad. It's like all of that stuff then starts to become dogmatic. So really, your diet should just be common sense. It's like, what's seasonal, what's natural that the earth provides, and What do you feel like? That's pretty much it. When you have specific health conditions, then sure, you've got to be more specific, but that specificity is really short term. It's much like an exercise program, which you need to change every 4 weeks so you don't plateau. You can start with something a bit restrictive or extreme, however you would like to look at that. But then in short order, you do need to keep revising that in order to keep progressing through your results. And the more results you get, the broader you should be with your diet and the less restrictive you should be with your diet.
So this is something else I've understood about too, is like, I don't know, but to me, the people that are like vegetarians, and I get why they don't eat meat. Like some people have this heart thing for animals, and I get that too. But I've gotten these back and forth arguments, but my thing is I haven't met, and maybe you have, but I haven't met someone that just eats nothing but vegetables and that's it, or a vegetarian, or doesn't eat meat. That they don't look healthy to me. I don't know how to explain it. It's probably just because I haven't met the right one yet, but I've only known like 5 or 6 maybe vegetarians in my entire life, so I could be wrong about this, but it seems like they have a lot of health issues, or they just kind of look almost, weak in a way. Does that make sense? I hope I'm not making anybody mad, but it just seems kind of off balance to me is what I'm saying.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's just your observation. It's not a judgment at all, and it's quite accurate. I definitely have met vegans and vegetarians that look in good health. They don't look weak and depleted. But that's only when they're younger as well. Don't meet many that I would say are really functioning extremely well. In my experience, I've had to rehabilitate a lot of people's health because of vegan and vegetarian diets. I've never had to rehabilitate anybody because they ate meat. Do you know what I mean? It's like, It's not to say that people can't be, because it is in certain circumstances, you can just get away with just eating plant foods. You can.
Right.
I'm not saying that it's something that people shouldn't do or that they're wrong. And most people have an empathy for animals as well. Most people don't think that things should just die so that we can live. But that's being very reductionist as far as what constitutes life and what constitutes consciousness and even feeling, because all life forms feel and have a consciousness as well. So it's that, I think it's called anthropomorphizing, is when we as humans look at things that we associate to be more human-like, and therefore we can protect those, but anything that doesn't look human-like, that's okay to eat that, for example. And it's really missing the point of the grander structure of life. But again, I don't think that it's wrong to do, and people are welcome to do it. I have several friends that are vegans and vegetarians, and hey, some of them are functioning perfectly fine. But when you look deeper into things, not just the physical level, you look deeper into the other realms and the other bodies, you do start to see imbalances. And eventually those imbalances do make their way to the physical, which is why people end up consulting people like me to return their health when their metabolism's dropped out, their hormones aren't working properly, they have weird skin or gut issues, and then taking them off of the vegan and vegetarian lifestyle, they quite quickly can regain their health when they start introducing more animal-based and grounding foods. And look, at the end of the day, my take on that is that I don't pretend to be smarter than what created me. I don't pretend to judge what's right and wrong. If my body needs some flesh or some eggs or some milk or something like that, I'm going to give my body that. I definitely don't want to put any other life form through undue suffering or anything like that. I'm not going to cage up animals, not give them sunlight and just extract from them and pump them full of chemicals and vaccinate them just so I can sell them or eat them myself. If an animal is raised naturally and it's had its run in life, living in its moment. Remember, animals, as far as we know, don't have all this, I'm thinking about the past, I'm worried about the future, I'm stressed about what my mum and dad animal think about me. They don't live the same as us. They live very present in every moment. So every moment they are alive. So 1 millisecond of an animal's life can quite often constitute a greater stint of living than a human being living 99 years that never lived one day in its life because it was always off in its head about the future, the past, thinking about what others think, judging things right and wrong, not touching their own genitals or whatever it is, all of the things that humans do. I think that we don't live. And that's what the Matrix movie analogy is also about, not just the oppressive system, but what we do with our own minds. Whereas an animal living its natural life is like splendidly alive. And I don't see that as like a violent or a non-compassionate or empathetic thing to do, to exchange flesh for life, when realistically the part of us or an animal that is eternal and immortal, it has to live on. It only transmutes. So therefore that animal, when there's respect given and an honor given, just lives on through us in our experience. So I don't see it the way vegans and vegetarians see it. However, I do empathize with, not wanting to kill or to put do undue harm to any other life form, human or animal or plant for that matter, like, degrading forests and things like that, just so we can put up condos and swimming pools and whatever else. But then at the same time, we've got, I just think there's a dissociation, because a lot of those mindsets come from people that are in cities that aren't surrounded by nature, watching how nature works, watching how nature is in perfect balance by the way that life consumes life, and it continues to live on. It's kind of the way the natural cycles work. And I just prefer to live in that rather than judge it, think that I'm smarter than it, think that I know what's right and wrong. I just observe nature. And like most, traditional indigenous cultures, they all eat some form of animal food and flesh. None of them are vegan and vegetarian.
Yeah, right. Like I grew up hunting and fishing and gardening. I mean, since I was a kid, we did a lot of, country stuff like that, learned all about it. And you sit in the woods long enough, you can tell that animals don't really, they're going to die anyways. And even the humans, we hit some of the best meat that's the healthiest for us is like venison, right? We hit those dudes with our car every day, and they kill themselves off with disease and stuff every day anyways, right? So you have to look at it that way, in a sense. There's a lot of that stuff that's going back into the ground can also be used to nourish our bodies too, right? And that's what it's for. And like, my dad, he raised me up not to be that way. Like, if never to impale a animal, or always try to make sure it dies instantly, make your shots clean and all of that stuff. So there's something to be said about that too. It's just, I get, I don't know. I think it was coming to upstate New York. I ran into a lot of people that are vegan, and it just, it just didn't seem like, it didn't rub me wrong. I wish I had a better argument for them, or I wish I could have not an argument, but have a better discussion with them about it. But just from the obvious observation, it didn't seem like that they were energetically just fantastic from it,
No, that's also a consequence of being in a city perhaps as well. But it is a fair observation, to be honest, through a cross section throughout the world. If you look at people that live that lifestyle, they're generally not as robust. To me, look, honestly, my take on it is just that it's a psyop. I think that whole thing is put in place to make people less empowered and less able to access their own power, even for a lot of reasons anyway, too many to go into. But that's what I believe it's all about. But hey, people are free to do what they want. I don't judge people for being vegan and vegetarian. And for a lot of people, they're doing it for reasons that I admire. They think it's better for the environment, and they think it's kinder to animals and life forms, and I admire that. So I certainly don't judge them for it. It's just that the reality is that, in my experience dealing with a lot of people's health conditions, more often than not, I have to rehabilitate people who live those lifestyles, as opposed to people that eat balanced diets that include a variety of animal foods and plant foods. So that's all I say. I don't say that it's wrong to live that kind of lifestyle at all.
So just out of curiosity, what's a day in the life of Tom Barnett like? I mean, do you wake up, do meditation? Do you eat 4 meals a day? Like, I don't, because this is what I want to try to get across here, especially for me, because I'm curious too. I think we, as normal people, when we look at somebody as like, oh, they're a health consultant and they know all about this stuff, they must like be super rigid with their diet and take supplements every day and meditate 9 times a day. I mean, is that true? Is that how you live?
No, No, and not even the people that say they do that. I mean, I've known a lot of people in the industry. I've known a lot of influencers on social media, and the life that they say they live is basically nothing like what they actually live, because it just doesn't add up or make sense. And I've seen it for real. So a day in my life, the way I don't have, honestly, I used to always have a set structure, and as I said before, like I just adapt to what my current state of development is like what does that need? And earlier in my life, I needed the absolute discipline of a regimen. So I'd get up at 4:45 every day, I'd train, then I'd have breakfast, then I'd do this, then I'd do that, then it was, nap time, or then it was whatever it was. The day was scheduled like a military camp, essentially, where training was, where meditation was, where work was, where rest was, all the meals planned out, all that kind of thing. And that has its place. What I do at the moment, like today, for this month, is kind of different from it was a couple of months ago, which is different from what it'll be like once we hit winter, which is a couple of months away. So it just varies. Right now, mostly what I do when I get up is I do a little bit of working in, which is essentially the opposite of working out I was talking to you about earlier, which is drawing in energy, syncing movement to breath, and just essentially getting synced to myself and the day. I usually do that in the sun with no clothes on, just getting as much all body sun as I can. And then at the moment, it's emails after that.
Right.
So
yeah. I understand the email thing for sure.
Yeah, it's not what I would choose to do. I would be doing other things, and that's what I've not done previously, and I won't be doing come winter sort of thing. But at the moment, I've just been launching the site and everything. There's a lot of having to keep up with emails, and I find that's the best time to be able to catch up on some of that before I've got to do other work and everything else. But essentially, as far as eating, I do really the same thing every day. I'll have a clay drink or some unsalted raw cheese in the morning as an absorber for the toxicity that's dumped to the stomach after we sleep. And then I'll usually have a green juice or something alkalizing. After that, then I'll move into the first meal of the day. The meals are pretty well standard, and the spacings between, it's generally 3 to 5 meals, depending on how big the snack is. I'd class that as a snack or a meal. But generally, it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I always have something before bed, and then there'll be 2 snacks in there as well, but they might be the size of a meal. So whether you count that as 3 meals and 2 or 3 snacks, or 6 meals, it's up to how you would define it. It really depends on the size of them as well. But it's always the same, I guess, concoction of things, which is stuff that's natural and organic, stuff that the earth's given me, and that it's in season. And it's majority raw. It's pretty much 100% raw. It's kind of rare that I eat cooked stuff, but the meats, the dairy, the eggs, everything is eaten raw. The vegetables are mostly juiced, except for some that are, obviously cooked, like if it's a sweet potato or something to that effect. But yeah, that's pretty much what it looks like at the moment, just because of how busy I am and how busy I've gotten since making those videos. Then each day is kind of different. Do I have to put live streams in? How many emails am I answering? How many interviews am I doing? How many consults am I doing? And then how much community work am I doing? Because since this has all come in, everybody's been, really having to keep ahead of the curve to stop some of the, the smart city agenda and 5G and the, masks and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of other community work that I'm doing as well. So it's very all over the place at the moment. It's not how I would structure my day if I had the choice about what to do. At the moment, I feel like I'm being, I'm in a bit of a flow with what's happening around me and having to meet the needs of the moment. So I'm having to be very adaptable. And adaptable is kind of the opposite of being that highly, what I was talking about before, that militaristic schedule of discipline. And so that's how it's like now. It won't be like that in a few months, as I say, and in a few years, I'll have a different lifestyle altogether. So I like to be able to adapt and grow based on how I am already growing with myself,
What do you think's the biggest thing someone can do right off the bat that's trying to get healthy? Because I've heard you talk about the gut a lot, and I just heard you talk about raw cheese to absorb some of the toxins of the gut. Some people say, well, if you want to kickstart your health, just quit sugar and start drinking water. Some people say cut out all white stuff or things like that. If someone just wanted to start, say, hey, look, I want more energy. I want to be better spiritually sound. I'm completely out of shape. What would be the one thing that you would tell them to cut out first, ASAP?
Polyunsaturated fats. So vegetable oil, anything that's like a vegetable oil, a trans fat, a cooked fat thing that's put into all kinds of foods. Pretty much by eliminating that, you have to eliminate processed and junk foods anyway. Those are the things like safflower, sunflower, canola oils, all those things that are added to pretty much every single processed food. So, but as an element, you're saying what element to cut out, basically like sugar or fat or this or that. It's not just processed food per se. It's the polyunsaturated fats. Those, in my experience, do the most damage. Those cause diabetes rather than sugar causing it. Those cause all kinds of health issues, clogged lymphatic systems, hormonal disruption, all from those polyunsaturated fats. They're cheap and nasty, and they're part of the industrialization complex, and they're added to almost everything. And so simply by looking for those and eliminating those, you will find you will automatically have to be gravitating towards fresh natural foods, because it's pretty much they are laden in everything. And so that's the number one thing to cut out to start getting healthy quick.
Yeah, that's interesting. So healthy fats are good. Polyunsaturated fats are like the total opposite of the spectrum. They're just destroying
Exactly.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny to me, man, because I see these people on keto, and you based on what I learned when I was a kid, they're eating steak and steak fat and all this other stuff and cheese, and you're like, that should make you, swell up, but it doesn't for them, because the body, if it's getting is protein and fat, then that's what it's going to burn, right? So, that's kind of obvious, but we didn't know that because when we were kids, they said, but they had that 5 food group thing, make sure you eat dairy and all this other stuff, which people say that was a conspiracy too for the dairy departments and all that, but I don't know. I don't know if there is such a thing as your, square meals or whatever. Do you take supplements though? Like a 1 a day and all that stuff?
No, I don't take any. Get it all from food. There's almost no supplement that's actually beneficial. They all have a negative effect on the body in some way. Most of them aren't natural in any way. The vast majority are made in the same labs that make the pharmaceutical drugs. When they're made purely from natural foods and plant sources, then they're okay. But it's only, if your diet's really bad, will you notice anything? Anybody that eats a good, natural, balanced diet is only going to have some negative consequences from supplements. And look, some of them there are some, but just I like to get people to think in terms of food rather than relying on supplements. A herb or, a medicinal herb or a medicinal mushroom or something like that that's turned into a supplement. Sure, that can be good, but it's also not necessary, because when the body is getting all of its trace minerals, enzymes, vitamins, macronutrients, prebiotics, probiotics, all that kind of stuff from a natural diet, you can't get better than that by taking something that's a supplement. Most supplements are a powder, for example. So somebody might say, I don't get enough fruit and veg, so I'm just going to take this powder one. It's like it's all organic vegetables. There's nothing artificial in it. And that might be true. But the thing is that nature designs things in a certain way. It puts those vitamins and minerals and enzymes into the food bound by water, first of all, which has an ionic charge. It's that ionic charge that transports a nutrient into a cell. Otherwise, it just skirts around cells and circulates into the extra cellular fluid. And same with everything else. It's like it's just got this designed by nature code, or it's like a puzzle. Everything fits in there in the right place, and that's what makes it bioavailable. That's what makes an orange grown in your tree in your backyard far superior to whatever the supposed most superfood is that's grown in another country that's shipped to you as a powder. It's just not the same thing. It carries no energetic quality, and the bioavailability of it might not be that great. So a natural food that's seasonal will outweigh any supplement 1,000 to 1 any day of the week. It's only when somebody has extreme nutritional deficiencies due to either environmental circumstances, socioeconomic circumstances, or whatever, that a supplement will be the right thing to do. And I do prescribe supplements to some people. It's very rare. And it's only because they're in some kind of compromised state that a supplement's actually going to help them. Everybody else, it's food. There's no supplements.
Fantastic. I wonder how your dream states are, man. Do you remember your dreams each night?
Yeah, I remember most of them. Yeah, they're always quite vivid.
Really? That's cool. That's cool, because I was thinking about that earlier when we were talking about the energy and stuff, that probably because your sound in the body, or more sound than most, that you're able to remember more of your dreams and have a better relationship with yourself and higher self too, which kind of circles back to what we were talking about before. Man, honestly, the only thing that's ever really just super cut the fat off of me was just cutting out sugar, right? And the trans fats like you're talking about, and then sticking to lean proteins, complex carbs. Is that an old school thing, or is that out now?
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's old school. That's typical bodybuilding protocol, and it works. There's nothing wrong with it. I think you're missing it. It's always a slightly depletive way of eating when you're eating bodybuilder style, but at the same time, it's there's a lot in that too. You know, you're also making the assumption that fat's bad. Like, having excess body weight is not necessarily a bad thing, because if you're eating natural, clean, if that body fat isn't as a result of junk foods and too much inactivity, and if you're eating clean and natural foods and it's all organic, if you're getting enough movement and fresh air and breathing well, if you're getting enough sunlight, if you're sleeping well and you have a good, happy disposition, whatever amount of body fat you're carrying is healthy, because you're a healthy individual. It's only when that body fat comes from extreme inactivity or, eating pizzas and drinking sodas, that's when you just are going to have health issues associated with the weight, but it's not necessarily the weight that's causing an issue. There's actually no study ever that shows that body fat is linked directly to disease. It's always other surrounding factors. And so a lot of the time it's a vanity thing. We go, oh, I'm fat, I don't like the rolls around my waist or something, so therefore I need to lose weight. There's nothing wrong with doing that and achieving a leaner body at all. My point being that the fat by itself, if you're living a healthy lifestyle, is in no way unhealthy, and quite the opposite. It can be protective, because the only part of our body that can't be destroyed by very harmful toxins such as mercury, arsenic, lead, cadmium, those sorts of toxic metallic minerals, is fat. They'll destroy muscle, connective tissue, nerve tissue, and bone, but they won't destroy fat. So the body always needs to shuttle its most toxic elements into high fat storage areas. So when you're carrying a little extra, you're actually protected from the toxicity that we experience in our modern lifestyles. Those people who have 6% body fat aren't protected, and they can have consequences to that sooner or later. And so, not suggesting everybody go out and get super fat. There's nothing wrong. If there's nothing wrong with you and you're athletic, then, it's fine. Have abs and whatever, it doesn't matter. But and also genetically, some people just carry the weight. It's just they're big boned people. If they were to be 6% body fat and look like a ripped bodybuilder all year, all throughout their life, I think they're going to be depleting a lot of other systems in the body, because they're pushing against the grain of nature too far. And if they're naturally big boned, then that's just the way things are. Other cultures, indigenous cultures, they don't have these body dysmorphia issues that we have in Western culture. I've seen plenty in different countries that I've gone to. They eat exactly like everyone else in their community. They have the same lifestyle. Whatever, and they're just bigger boned. They just are. But nobody looks at them like they're in some way inferior, and neither do they look at themselves like they're in some way inferior. And in fact, if you look at a lot of anthropological studies, those that were very lean in the past were seen as the peasants. They weren't the ones that would be chosen, for example, to procreate and whatever. It was people who had weight on them because they were genetically fit, they were fertile, and probably wealthy because they could afford to eat. We have these swings in what's seen as right or wrong, or what's the word? It's like something that you want, whatever that word is. I can't think of the word. So previously, people wanted to be a bit chubby. Today, people want to be super lean. It's like these things switch around. But the reality, just to recap, is that body weight is not unhealthy when you're not living an unhealthy lifestyle. Quite the opposite. It's actually protective. And generally, people that carry at least a little bit more weight are generally warmer, like temperature, warmer in spirit. Like anyone that you think of that's irritable and anxious and shitty in mood and that, they're quite often lean people, not people with a bit of, bit of padding on them. And
I always noticed that, like real skinny kind of people, and no offense if you're skinny, but they can get really angry, like brutally angry, I mean, we all get angry, right? We all say stuff, but or do things, but I was thinking about what you were saying growing up too. I had a couple of aunts and one uncle that I was like, yeah, they were a little bit, I would just say crankier. I'll put it that way. Right.
Yeah. It is also a constitution as well. So if you look at Ayurvedic practice, they have various types. There's Pitta, Vata, and oh Jesus, it's just escaped me. I was literally just thinking of it. Now I go to say it, it's not there. But it's essentially, there's types that are more predisposed to being big boned. And it's just not, it's literally just a genetic thing. And some people are wiry and they're naturally more anxious. They're naturally more prone to produce adrenaline, and they live that adrenal kind of, they have that disposition and that constitution. So it's a bunch of things together. It's that, first of all, the potential, the genetic expression. And then second of all, it's how you live your life. So you can calm that propensity to be too anxious or flighty or, erratic or just not calm in mood. You can handle that by eating and having a lifestyle that supports that, so that it doesn't run away too far down that track. And likewise, the ones that are typically more big boned have a naturally slower metabolism, but they don't need to go to the point of being sluggish and constipated and everything else, because if they work with their genetic expression, they can, tame that so that they don't express in that way. So I find it's both. Some people, as I say, are just predisposed to be a certain way, but it's only as a result of their lifestyle that it will actually go too far out into that realm where they are, like you were just talking about, angry people. Someone that I normally don't like to talk about people personally, but somebody that keeps coming up for me is, there's a lot of people that keep, they keep getting me to watch all these documentaries and things on, the shape of the earth, for example, the flat earth thing. And then one guy that keeps coming up is this Santos Bonacci guy. And he's somebody who's good at,
I interviewed him too, and he seemed like he was just pissed off bad.
Yeah, he is. Well, I don't know him, but he's got great knowledge, it seems, of natural law, right? He seems to have a great understanding of ancient, ancient interpretations of energetics, the way the earth is structured and everything. But he just seems like he's angry 24/7. And anybody that eats meat is apparently a moron and a psycho and a complete dickhead. The language he uses, I'm just like, dude, what's wrong with you? Like, I want to listen to what you're saying, because you sound like you have some really valid knowledge, but I can't hear it because you're so angry. Like, that's all. Something seems wrong. I'm like, that's where my mind goes. I'm not hearing what he's saying. I'm going, dude, why are you so angry? There's something wrong there. And I've seen pictures of him, and he looks like he weighs 40 kilograms.
Exactly. When I interviewed him, I was actually interviewed him with a friend, and I had him on, and he was really cool to me, right? Same thing. And he had a ton of knowledge, and I always wanted to talk to him, but he did seem like he was on the edge, like he was just ready to smack somebody, but almost that kind of agitated because he hadn't ate in 2 days, ready to smack somebody too. That's what it kind of felt like hangry. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what'll happen if you're just going too plant-based and your body isn't designed to be that. Some bodies are designed to run quite well plant-based. Other bodies that are fast oxidizers, if you don't do that, you'll get sick and hangry pretty quick. I've got one of those body types. If I don't have denser animal foods in my diet, I get not functioning well.
I understand. I feel pretty good today. I had a ribeye last night. See how that works? Works pretty good, right? So anyway, Anyways, yeah, we got to roll out of here, man. But if anybody, and I'm really interested in this too, if anybody wants to like get your services, I don't know if you have spots available. You're probably busy, but how can they go about and contact you?
Yeah, all the contacts are on the website at tombarnett.tv. There's the email address for it is just booking@tombarnett.tv. Yeah, I'm definitely open for consults. I don't really advertise it as such because I got so much other work that I do. I actually do more unpaid work than I do paid work, but consults are one of the ways that I support myself. But you can just email me through the site, contact me through there, and it's pretty easy to slot people in, especially if they're in other countries. There's only, US, it tends to be my mid-morning or my late afternoons kind of fits in with, like what we're doing now. So, definitely available for that if people need it. And then all of my videos that I've ever done are on that site as well. So everything that got deleted or banned, and also interviews and workshops that I've done that I couldn't put on a public channel, they're on there as well. So if anyone wants to go and get more information on health and natural law and anything else, it's all on that tombarnett.tv website.
All right, fantastic. And thanks for coming on the broadcast again, man. It was really cool talking to you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
You guys go check out the website, tombarnett.tv. The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable's up next. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same channel. Good night, you guys. Sweet dreams. Thanks, man, for coming on. It was cool. It was a cool interview.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, I enjoyed that. Thanks.